it's Christine. Hey, I thought I would get on and do this short video to talk a little bit about what kind of prep work you need to do or how to know if the rocks that you have are going to be good rocks for rock tumbling. And as I'm doing this, I realized I did not turn off my rock tumblers, so I hope you can hear me okay over those. I'll try to talk a little louder. But I wanted to talk a little bit about like how to know if rocks are good for rock tumbling, what sizes of rocks to use, and the extreme importance of using the MOHS hardness scale to know if your rocks are good for tumbling and what kind of rocks to tumble together. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I use this book. It's the National Geographic Pocket Guide for Rocks and Minerals of North America because it has the best description in the very back cover of the MOHS hardness scale tests that you can use to determine whether or not your rock is a hardness of 6 or your rock is a hardness of 7. This is my favorite like MOHS hardness scale testing guide. So I use this to help me know what the hardness of my rock might be. So that's this book that I recommend. And I have no affiliation with National Geographic whatsoever. This is just one of my favorite rock field guides. So you want to know whether or not your rocks are a hardness of 6, a hardness of 7, or if they're softer, or even if they're harder. But what we're really paying attention to is whether or not your rocks are actually too soft to tumble, or if you should be sorting out your rocks into different batches to make sure you don't tumble harder rocks with softer rocks, okay? So one of the easiest ways to check on the hardness of a rock, if you know the identification of your rocks, that helps a ton. And I know with some rocks there's just no way to know exactly what it is, especially if you find it. But let's say you have some rocks that you've purchased for rock tumbling. Let's say you purchased like crazy lace agate and you're like, well, what's the hardness of crazy lace agate? I don't have a lot of it. I need to put some other rocks in the tumbler with it. All you have to do is go to Google, and in the Google search bar type in hardness of crazy lace agate, and then as soon as you hit the search button on that, it will come right up and it will tell you the hardness of it is 7. I believe crazy lace agate is 7. What is the hardness of rose quartz? And then you hit the search button on Google and it will bring up rose quartz in the hardness level on Google. It should be a very simple sentence. You shouldn't have to search for it. So that is the easiest way that I know what my hardness of my rocks are. I actually did that and I made a list for myself of all the rocks I have for tumbling. So maybe that would be something that you can do for yourself. And if you know what all of your rocks are, then you can sort your rocks out based on the hardness level. So like you can tumble together quartz and jasper, and you can also tumble together agates and quartz. Although you want to watch jaspers because some jaspers are more of a hardness of 6 versus a hardness of 7. And I don't like to mix those because the harder rocks are going to bang against the softer rocks, and those softer rocks are going to be more susceptible to being broken or dissolved because you've got the harder rocks eating at them because they sand together in the rock tumbling process. So you have to keep all of that in mind. So when you're trying to figure out what kind of rocks you have, you want to be able to sort them out by hardness level. So you want all your 7s in a pile, you want all your 6s in a pile. And if you find that you don't have enough rocks to fill up your barrel, just use ceramic media. You can use ceramic media in stage 1. That's totally fine. Also with stage 1, because it's like rough grinding and sanding down, you can also use like pebbles that you put into an aquarium. I use that sometimes for stage 1. I don't use that for future stages because future stages, I don't want that dust and stuff all over my rocks. But in stage 1, it's just sanding down and shaping the rocks, and it's going to get kind of dirty. So it's totally fine to add in extra pebbles that you don't really care about. I've gotten them from the Dollar Tree to give it that bulk and space so that you can fill your barrel 3/4 of the way full, which is really essential. Don't forget that. Because if you don't fill your barrel 3/4 of the way full, the rocks are going to bang around and they will be at huge risk of bruising one another or cracking one another. You might even lose them entirely in the process. So keep all of that in mind. But when trying to figure out rocks, like not minerals that are really easy to look up online, but rocks that you find and you pick up and you're like, what is this? How do I know what the hardness of it is? It is really hard to know what the hardness of a rock is because sometimes you look at a rock and you're like, huh, there's some quartz in there. There might be like, I don't know, some chert in there. I don't know what's in here. So what you will really want, a while back, Brittany's Minerals, Brittany had put up a hardness kit, which is this. This is the hardness kit. This is how it came, that she got off of Amazon. I can try to relink that in the comments below if you weren't here when she posted that. You will want to get a hardness kit. This is super helpful. It comes with glass slabs like this. And what you want to do when you have rocks you don't know what their hardness is, or you don't know what their identification is, you want to scratch the rock against the slab to see if it makes a line. And I don't know if you can see that, but this one easily made a line. So when you scratch the rock on here, and how I know this is it's the test that's recommended here on the MOHS hardness scale in this little field guide. It says that a rock that is at a hardness of 7 will easily scratch glass. A hardness of 6 will also scratch glass. So here is like a very simple rule. If your rock can scratch glass, it's really good for rock tumbling. It's not going to fall apart easy. It's just, you can use a regular rock tumbling routine that you've seen in my videos from stage 1 through stage 5 if your rocks are hard enough that they can scratch glass. So what I would do is I would go through your pile of rocks and have a glass slab like this. You can also do it on a glass bottle, but a glass slab is a whole lot easier. And I'll tell you another benefit of the glass slab in just a second. But all the rocks that can scratch this, it doesn't matter if it's a hardness of 6 or hardness of 7, I would just put it in a pile by themselves. If you see that one rock doesn't scratch as easy as another rock, you might want to make a separate piles for those. What rocks that easily make the scratch on the glass, and rocks that you have to put a little more pressure on because they may be more of a hardness of 6. It's not terrible to mix hardnesses of 6 and 7. I just try to avoid it as much as I can, just so there's no risk of the 7s hurting the 6s in the rock tumbling process. One benefit of having this glass slab is one way to tell, like if your rock does not scratch the glass at all, that means it's softer than a 6, but you want to know just how soft it is. If it's a hardness of 5, according to this, it says it can be scratched by a knife with difficulty, but it can also be scratched by glass. You're not scratching on glass. A hardness of 5 can be scratched by glass. So what that means is if it doesn't scratch the glass, you want to take the corner of the glass slab and you want to run it along the rock and see if it will scratch it real easy. If it scratches it real easy, it's probably a hardness of 5. But then I would be concerned, like, is it softer than a hardness of 5? So then I would go down to a hardness of 4. A hardness of 4 can easily be scratched with a knife. So then you get a sharp knife and then you try and scratch it. If your rock can be easily scratched by a sharp knife, then it's a hardness of 4. Anything that's a hardness of 4 or softer, you probably want to avoid in the rock tumbling process. I'm not saying you can't tumble them, but those are called advanced tumbles, meaning they take really special care to tumble through. And if you're beginning at this is new to you, I don't recommend starting with rocks that are a hardness of 4 or softer. And I even recommend holding back from a hardness of 5 until you've had some experience, because it is a little bit of a different experience in trying to tumble those rocks. Because if you go through the same process with a hardness of 5 or softer as you would with hardnesses of 6s and 7s, then you might lose more of the rock than you really want to, and the rocks might dissolve a lot faster than you expected it to. So you want to be careful about all of that. So if your rock can be scratched with a sharp knife, I would be careful about maybe not tumbling those right away. So a rock that comes to mind, or a mineral actually that comes to mind, that is at a hardness of 4 is fluorite. So fluorite can be tumbled, but you have to know how to do it. So if you have a mineral, it has to be a specific mineral. It can't be a rock that is mixed with all kinds of minerals. I'm talking about a mineral that you know for sure what it is. So let's say you have some fluorite. You want to get on YouTube, and I recommend YouTube because it's easier to watch people do the process than just like write about it. You want to get on YouTube and type in rock tumbling fluorite. And there are people that have tried it, and you want to watch the videos where they have been successful at that and go with that. Like, take your ideas from people that have already tried this before you. I have not tumbled anything that is a hardness of 4 or softer. I've not tried it. I have some rocks that I want to try with, but I'm still working on my skills with the hardness of 5 and up. Rock that is a hardness of 4 is a rock that can be scratched with a sharp knife real easy. Okay, now if the rock cannot be scratched with a sharp knife, but it can be cut with or scratched with a corner of glass, that means it's a hardness of 5. you want to put those in a separate pile as well. And again, I'm not saying don't rock tumble those, but do your 6s and 7s first, because you'll have better success with those and they're not as hard to work through with the tumbling process. So I hope this was helpful to you when you're starting your rock tumbling journey, and trying to figure out, should these be tumbled together, or are these good rocks to tumble? And you also want to look at things like, you know, how broken up is the rock, how weathered has the rock been. Like this rock has a lot of holes in it. It's not going to tumble as well as a rock that hasn't been as weathered. Okay, does that make sense? Meaning like it's been through a lot of water and a lot of like sediment probably caused all the holes and stuff in that rock. So I mean, some of those holes will get taken care of in the sanding process, but because it's so much that the sanding process has to cover up and has to take care of, I'm going to lose a lot of this rock, and it's not going to turn out quite as well as a rock that doesn't have as much weathering, that hasn't been beaten up as much, in other words, right? So you want to be aware of that. And there are rocks sometimes that have deep grooves in them or deep pits in them, and you want to be aware of those rocks, because the grit will get down in those grooves and sometimes it just will not come out and it ruins the look of the rock, and that's no fun. So you want to be careful of tumbling rocks that just would not do well in general through the rock tumbling process. You want to do rocks that are mostly smooth all over, for the most part. They might have a couple cracks in them that will be fixed in the sanding process in stage 1 and stage 2, but you want to make sure like there's not any deep holes, or the whole rock isn't like all broken up with holes and pits and things, because those rocks usually just don't tumble very well. You end up losing more of the rock in the process, so it's probably better just not to tumble those. So you want to sort out your rocks when you have a whole bunch of rocks you're looking at and thinking about rock tumbling with. Sort out the ones that look good, look like they would make good tumbles. They don't have a lot of broken up pieces in them or a lot of holes in them. And then you want to do your hardness test with them. And if you need like a hardness test on hand, this book I highly recommend, if for nothing else than the hardness scale in the back of it and the tests you do for it. But really easy rule of thumb, if it scratches glass, you can tumble it. Okay? Remember that. If it scratches glass, you can tumble it. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, you can put the questions in the comments below. And when I say comments below, either here on YouTube or in the group on Facebook. Okay? I hope you guys are having a fabulous day. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.